The blood-soaked bandana trembled in Olivia Farrow's hands as she pressed it against the gash in her side, her breathing ragged as she stumbled down the dusty main street of Eager, Arizona. The year was 1878, and the relentless June sun beat down upon her battered frame as she searched desperately for help, knowing her pursuers wouldn't be far behind. Yates Nolan had just emerged from the general store when he spotted the woman staggering toward him. Despite the dirt caking her face and the blood seeping through her fingers, there was a fierce determination in her eyes that caught his attention immediately. He dropped his supplies and rushed to her side just as her knees buckled beneath her. "Whoa there, madam," Yates said, his voice steady as he caught her before she hit the ground. His weathered hands, calloused from years of ranching, gently supported her weight. "You're hurt." Olivia tried to push him away, her eyes darting frantically up and down the street. "Please, just let me be. They'll find me." "Who'll find you?" Yates asked, his brow furrowed with concern as he noticed the wound at her side. "You need a doctor." "No doctors," Olivia hissed through clenched teeth. "No one can help me. I've brought this on myself." Yates glanced around, noticing a few townsfolk beginning to stare. With a swift decision, he gathered the woman into his arms. "My ranch is just outside town. You'll be safe there until we figure this out. Why would you help me?" Olivia whispered, her voice weak as she felt her consciousness slipping. "You don't know me. You don't know what I've done." Yates adjusted his hat with one hand while supporting her with the other. "Around these parts, madam, we don't let folks bleed out in the street. That's just common decency." "I don't deserve kindness," she murmured, her eyes fluttering closed as the pain overwhelmed her. The cowboy's expression softened, though his jaw remained set with determination. "Let me prove you wrong," he replied, carrying her toward his horse tied outside the store. With careful movements, Yates mounted his bay stallion with Olivia secured in front of him. He nudged his horse forward, riding out of town toward his ranch in the foothills. The woman in his arms was light, too light, as though she hadn't eaten properly in weeks. Her clothing, though tattered, was of fine quality, not the typical garments of a frontier woman. Olivia drifted in and out of consciousness during the journey. Fragments of memory tormented her: gunshots, screams, a letter with a broken seal, and blood, so much blood. She couldn't remember how long she'd been running, only that she couldn't stop. The ranch came into view just as the sun began its descent toward the horizon. It wasn't grand by any means, but the two-story house stood proudly against the backdrop of mountains and pine forests. A barn and several outbuildings completed the homestead, along with fenced pastures where cattle grazed in the distance. As they approached, a weathered man emerged from the barn, his silver hair catching the sunlight. "Patrick," Yates called out to his ranch hand. "Get a room ready and fetch hot water and bandages. We've got an injured woman." Patrick nodded without question and hurried toward the house. By the time Yates dismounted and carried Olivia inside, a bedroom had been prepared. "What happened to her?" Patrick asked as Yates laid Olivia gently on the bed. "Don't know yet," Yates replied, removing his hat and running a hand through his dark hair. "Found her in town about to collapse. She's running from someone, that much is clear." Patrick's wife, Eleanor, entered the room carrying bandages and a basin of steaming water. Her eyes widened at the sight of Olivia's wound. "That's a knife wound, Yates. Maybe even a gunshot graze. This isn't some accident." "I know," Yates replied grimly. "Can you tend to her?" Eleanor nodded. "I'll need to remove her dress to clean the wound properly." "I'll wait outside," Yates said, stepping into the hallway with Patrick. "You sure bringing her here was wise?" Patrick asked once the door was closed. "If she's mixed up in something bad, what would you have me do?" "Leave her to die in the street." Yates ran a hand over his stubbled jaw. "We'll find out her story when she wakes." Inside the bedroom, Alina worked efficiently to clean and dress Olivia's wound. The injury was deep but had missed anything vital. With careful stitches, Alina closed the gash and applied a poultice of herbs to fight infection. Olivia regained consciousness as Alina was finishing her work. She gasped and tried to sit up, her eyes wild with panic. "Easy now," Alina soothed, gently pressing her back against the pillows. "You're safe here." "Where am I?" Olivia demanded, wincing at the pain in her side. "Yates Nolan's ranch, about 3 miles outside Eager," Alina explained. "I'm Alina, wife of Patrick, who helps run this place. Yates brought you here after you collapsed in town." Memories flooded back and Olivia closed her eyes. "I need to leave, now." "With that wound, you wouldn't make it half a mile," Alina said firmly. "Rest tonight at least. No one knows you're here except us." Olivia reluctantly settled back, too weak to argue. "The man who brought me here." "Yates," Alina nodded. "He's a good man. One of the best in these parts. He won't turn you over to whoever you're running from, not without hearing your side first." "There's no good side to my story," Olivia whispered. Alina patted her hand. "I've lived long enough to know that few stories are as simple as they first appear. Rest now." After Alina left, Olivia stared at the ceiling, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the ranch settling for the night. She'd been running for so long she'd forgotten what it felt like to lie in a proper bed, to be treated with kindness. But she knew she couldn't stay. By morning she would need to be gone. Outside the bedroom, Yates spoke quietly with Alina. "She'll live," Alina assured him. "The wound was deep but clean. She's malnourished and exhausted, though. Whatever she's been through, it's taken its toll." "Did she say anything about herself?" Yates asked. Alina shook her head. "Nothing substantial. She's scared, Yates, and not just of her wound." "She wanted to leave immediately." Yates frowned. "Keep an eye on her tonight. I'll take the morning shift." As darkness fell over the ranch, Yates sat on the porch, a rifle across his knees. He wasn't sure what trouble the mysterious woman had brought to his doorstep, but his instincts told him she wasn't the cause of it, merely caught in its path. When morning came, Yates brought a tray of breakfast to Olivia's room, only to find the bed empty and the window open. Cursing under his breath, he set down the tray and moved to the window. She couldn't have gone far, not with her injury. He spotted her immediately, a small figure stumbling toward the tree line at the edge of his property. Yates quickly descended the stairs and exited the house, covering ground rapidly with his long stride. "Madam," he called out when he was within earshot, "that wound opens up again, and you'll be in a worse spot than yesterday." Olivia froze, her shoulders slumping in defeat as she turned to face him. In the clear morning light, Yates could see her properly for the first time. Despite the dirt and fatigue, she was striking hair the color of burnished copper and eyes like polished jade. She couldn't have been more than 25. "I can't stay here," she said, her voice stronger than it had been the day before. "I've put you in enough danger already." "Funny thing," Yates replied, approaching slowly as if she were a spooked horse. "I don't recall asking if I could handle danger. Been dealing with it most of my life." "This is different," Olivia insisted. "These men, they won't stop until they find me." "And who might these men be?" Yates asked, stopping a few feet from her. "Might help if I knew what I was up against." Olivia hesitated, weighing her options. This man had saved her life, possibly at the risk of his own. She owed him some explanation. "My name is Olivia Farrow. I worked as a governess for the Harrington family in Santa Fe. Mr. Harrington was, a banker with powerful connections." "Was?" Yates prompted when she fell silent. "He's dead," Olivia said flatly. "Murdered 3 weeks ago. They think I did it." Yates's expression remained neutral. "Did you?" "No," Olivia exclaimed, then lowered her voice. "No, but I saw who did and they know it." I found papers in Mr. Harrington's study ledgers showing money being funneled to officials, bribes, blackmail. When I confronted him about it, he dismissed me. That night, I heard arguing from his study. When I went to investigate, I saw two men leaving through the window. Mr. Harrington was dead at his desk. "And these men saw you," Yates concluded. Olivia nodded. "I ran. They've been chasing me ever since. I thought I'd lost them in Flagstaff, but they caught up to me outside Eager yesterday. I managed to escape, but not before this." She gestured to her side. Yates considered her story, searching her face for any sign of deception. Finding none, he made his decision. "My ranch is isolated enough. Stay here until you're healed at least. Then we can figure out what to do next. Why would you risk yourself for me?" Olivia asked, genuinely perplexed by his offer. "Because it's the right thing to do," Yates replied simply. "And because I've got a fair bit of experience dealing with men who think they're above the law." Olivia wanted to refuse to continue her flight, but exhaustion and pain won out. "A few days," she conceded reluctantly. "Just until I can travel without reopening this wound." "Fair enough," Yates said with a nod. "Now there's breakfast getting cold, and Alina will have my hide if I let it go to waste." As they walked back to the house, Olivia studied her rescuer more closely. Yates Nolan stood well over 6 feet tall, his frame lean but powerful from years of ranch work. She guessed him to be in his early 30s, with dark hair that curled slightly at the nape of his neck and eyes the color of a stormy sky. His face was tanned and weathered, with laugh lines at the corners of his eyes that suggested he smiled often, though he wasn't smiling now. "How long have you had this ranch?" she asked, hoping to learn more about the man who had so inexplicably come to her aid. "Going on 8 years now," Yates replied. "Inherited it from my uncle after he passed. Before that, I worked cattle drives from Texas to Kansas, did some scouting for the Army during the Apache troubles." "You've lived an interesting life, Mr. Nolan." "Yates," he corrected. "And I suppose I have, though it doesn't often feel that way when you're just trying to keep the cattle watered and the fences mended." Back at the house, Alina fussed over Olivia's wound while Patrick kept watch from the porch. The elderly couple had worked for Yates's uncle before him and stayed on when Yates inherited the property. They had no children of their own and treated the ranch as their home as much as their workplace. "You need to rest that side," Alina admonished as she checked the stitches. "No more running off, young lady." "I won't," Olivia promised, feeling a peculiar sense of safety within these walls despite knowing it couldn't last. Not today, at least. The next few days passed in a strange sort of limbo. Olivia's strength gradually returned as she ate regular meals and rested properly for the first time in weeks. Yates kept his distance, spending most days out working the ranch, but each evening he would join her for dinner, and they would talk. She learned that he had fought briefly in the war as a very young man, lost both parents to typhoid, and built this ranch into one of the most respected in the territory through sheer determination and hard work. In turn, she told him about growing up in Boston, losing her family in a fire that left her penniless, and making her way west as a governess, moving from family to family as circumstances dictated. "You've survived more than most," Yates observed one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and purples. "Survival isn't the same as living," Olivia replied softly. "I've just been existing, moving from one place to the next without purpose." Yates turned to study her profile in the fading light. "What would give you purpose?" Olivia considered the question, one she hadn't allowed herself to contemplate in years. "A home," she finally said. "Not just a place to sleep, but somewhere I belong, people who would miss me if I were gone." Simple things that are hardest to find, Yates said with understanding. A comfortable silence fell between them, broken only by the distant lowing of cattle and the chirping of crickets as dusk deepened into night. "They'll find me eventually," Olivia said after a while, giving voice to the fear that constantly shadowed her thoughts. "Men like that don't give up." "Who exactly are they?" Yates asked. "You've told me why they are after you, but not who they are." Olivia drew a deep breath. "One of them is Marshall Webb, Mr. Harrington's business partner. The other is a man named Victor Holloway, some sort of enforcer for their operation. They're connected to territorial officials, possibly even federal ones. The ledgers I saw had payments to judges, marshals, even a senator." Yates whistled low. "Powerful enemies." "Now you understand why I can't stay," Olivia said. "When they find me and anyone associated with me will be in danger." "Or," Yates countered, "we could fight back, expose them for what they are." Olivia gave a bitter laugh. "With what proof?" "I didn't take the ledgers. It would be my word against theirs, and they're respected businessmen while I'm just a governess accused of murder." Yates was quiet for a moment, thinking. "There's a federal marshal I know in Prescott, Samuel Drake. He's as honest as they come. If we could get to him, tell him what you know." "It's not enough," Olivia insisted. "We need proof." "Then we'll get proof," Yates said with a determination that startled her. "Santa Fe is only a few days' ride, if those ledgers are still in Harrington's study." "You can't be serious," Olivia said, staring at him in disbelief. "You'd risk your life, your ranch, everything for a woman you barely know." Yates met her gaze steadily. "I know enough. I know you're telling the truth. I know you're worth helping." "I don't deserve this kind of risk," Olivia whispered, overwhelmed by his willingness to help her. "You keep saying what you don't deserve," Yates replied, his voice gentle but firm. "Maybe it's time you let someone else decide that." Olivia looked away, unable to respond to the unexpected kindness in his eyes. She'd spent so long running, so long not trusting anyone, that the concept of someone fighting alongside her was almost impossible to comprehend. The moment was interrupted by the sound of approaching hoofbeats. Yates was on his feet instantly, hand moving to the revolver at his hip. "Get inside," he ordered quietly. "Wake Patrick and tell him to bring my rifle." Olivia hurried into the house while Yates remained on the porch, outwardly relaxed but alert to any danger. A single rider approached the house, slowing his horse as he neared. In the fading light, Yates recognized Sheriff Thomas Morgan from Eager. "Evening, Sheriff," Yates called out as the man dismounted. "What brings you out this way after sundown?" "Evening, Nalan," the sheriff replied, tying his horse to the hitching post. "Got some questions for you if you don't mind." "Not at all," Yates said easily, though his hand remained near his weapon. "Care for some coffee?" "That would be welcome," Morgan replied, climbing the steps to join Yates on the porch. Inside, Olivia pressed herself against the wall beside the window, listening intently. Patrick stood nearby, Yates's rifle in his hands, while Alina watched from the kitchen doorway. "Couple of men rode into town yesterday," the sheriff was saying. "Well-dressed types from back east, asking questions about a red-headed woman. Said she's wanted for murder in Santa Fe. Interesting timing, considering you carried a red-headed woman out of town just days ago." Olivia's heart hammered in her chest. They had found her trail. "That's so," Yates replied casually. "The woman I helped was injured, not a murderer. She's working for me now, helping Alina with the house while she recovers." "Mind if I speak with her?" the sheriff asked. "She's resting," Yates said. "Been working hard despite her injury, but I can tell her you stopped by." There was a pause, and Olivia held her breath. "These men," the sheriff finally said, his voice lower now, "they flashed a lot of money around. Deputized themselves with some papers from Santa Fe. Don't look right to me. What are you saying, Thomas? Yates asked. I'm saying I've known you 15 years, Yates. If you're harboring this woman, you must have good reason. The sheriff's chair creaked as he leaned forward. But these men mean business. They're staying at the hotel, asking questions all over town. Someone's bound to remember you carrying a woman off. I appreciate the warning, Yates said carefully. Anything else I should know about these men? One calls himself Marshall Webb. Other one's named Holloway. Webb does the talking, but it's Holloway that worries me. Got dead eyes, that one. Wears his gun like he knows how to use it. Olivia's knees nearly buckled. They were here in Eager, less than 3 miles away. Thank you, Thomas, Yates said. I won't forget this. Don't thank me, the sheriff replied gruffly. Just be careful. And if that woman did something wrong, well, the law's the law, Yates. I can't look the other way forever. Understood. The men exchanged a few more pleasantries before the sheriff departed. Olivia remained frozen in place until Yates returned inside, his expression grim. You heard? He asked, finding her by the window. She nodded, unable to speak past the fear clogging her throat. We need to move quickly, Yates decided. They'll be here by morning, I'd wager. Patrick, ready the horses, the bay for me, the pinto for Miss Farrow. Pack supplies for a week's journey. Where are we going? Olivia asked, finding her voice at last. First to my line cabin in the mountains, Yates replied. It's remote, difficult to find if you don't know the way. We'll rest there, then make for Prescott to speak with Marshal Drake. And then Santa Fe, Olivia added, a new determination replacing her fear. For the proof we need. Yates looked at her with surprise and approval. Yes, then Santa Fe. Elena hurried to pack food and medical supplies while Patrick readied the horses. Olivia changed into clothing more suitable for riding: trousers, a shirt, and a coat that had belonged to Yates in his younger days. The clothes swam on her slight frame, but they would be practical for the journey ahead. Within an hour they were ready to depart. The night had fully descended, providing cover for their escape. Yates led the way, with Olivia following closely behind. They avoided the main trails, instead picking their way through the foothills, using the stars and Yates's intimate knowledge of the land to guide them. Olivia's side ached as they rode, but she gritted her teeth against the pain. The wound had begun to heal, but the strenuous activity threatened to reopen it. Still, she made no complaint, understanding that her life and now Yates's depended on their successful escape. They rode through the night, stopping only briefly to rest the horses. As dawn approached, they ascended higher into the mountains, the air growing cooler and the pine forest thickening around them. Finally, as the first rays of sunlight crested the eastern horizon, a small cabin came into view, nestled among the trees on a rocky outcropping. There it is, Yates said, pointing. Not much to look at, but it'll keep us hidden. The cabin was indeed modest, a single room with a stone fireplace, rough-hewn furniture, and a small loft accessible by ladder. It was dusty from disuse but solid and secure. I come up here during calving season sometimes, Yates explained as he unloaded their supplies, or when I need to check the high pastures. Not many folks know about it. Olivia sank onto a wooden chair, exhaustion finally catching up to her. Thank you, she said softly. For everything you're doing. Yates paused in his work, regarding her thoughtfully. You know, for someone so convinced she doesn't deserve kindness, you're mighty quick to express gratitude. The observation caught Olivia off guard. I suppose that's true. Maybe you deserve more than you think, Yates suggested, turning back to his tasks. As Yates prepared a simple breakfast from their supplies, Olivia found herself studying him again. There was something undeniably compelling about the man, not just his physical presence, which was impressive enough, but the quiet confidence with which he moved through the world. He seemed completely at ease with who he was, unburdened by the doubts that had plagued her entire life. "Tell me about your ranch," she said as they ate. "You must love it to have worked so hard building it up." A smile touched Yates's lips, softening the hard planes of his face. "It's not just land and cattle to me. It's a legacy, I suppose. My uncle built it from nothing, and I promised him I'd make it thrive. Each year it grows a little more cattle, more grazing land, more possibility." "You speak of it like a living thing," Olivia observed. "In a way it is," Yates replied. "It changes with the seasons, has good years and bad. Demands attention and care, but gives back tenfold if you treat it right." "You never married?" Olivia asked, then immediately flushed. "I'm sorry, that's far too personal a question," but Yates didn't seem offended. "Never found the right woman willing to take on a stubborn cowboy and his demanding ranch," he said with a self-deprecating smile. "Came close once, but she decided Denver's comforts were more appealing than Arizona's challenges." "Her loss," Olivia said without thinking, then flushed deeper when Yates's gaze sharpened on her face. "What about you?" he asked after a moment. "No husband in your past," Olivia shook her head. "As a governess, I was expected to remain unmarried, and before that, well, after my family died, I wasn't in a position to consider marriage. I was too busy surviving." "And now?" Yates asked quietly. "Now I'm still just trying to survive," she replied, her gaze dropping to her hands. "Though I admit, for the first time in a long while, I'm thinking beyond just tomorrow." They rested through the day, taking turns keeping watch while the other slept. The cabin's location afforded views of the trail below, allowing them to spot anyone approaching long before they arrived. But the day passed without incident, and as evening fell, they prepared to continue their journey. "We'll travel by night again," Yates decided. "It's slower going, but safer. 3 days to Prescott if we're lucky with the weather." As they saddled the horses, Olivia noticed Yates wincing as he tightened the cinch on his saddle. "You're hurt," she observed, moving closer. Yates shrugged it off. "Old injury acts up sometimes, nothing to worry about." But Olivia wasn't convinced. "Let me see." With reluctance, Yates pulled aside his shirt to reveal a long scar that ran across his right shoulder and down his back. The skin around it was inflamed and tight. "A patchy arrow, 6 years ago," he explained as Olivia examined it. "Healed well enough, but sometimes the muscles seize up." Olivia retrieved a jar of salve from their medical supplies. "Eleanor packed this for my wound, but I think you need it more. Sit down and let me help." To her surprise, Yates complied without argument, settling onto a stool and removing his shirt completely. Olivia tried to maintain a clinical detachment as she applied the salve to his shoulder, but she couldn't help noticing the interplay of muscles beneath her fingers or the way his breath caught when she touched a particularly sensitive spot. "Better?" she asked when she had finished, her voice not quite steady. Yates rolled his shoulder experimentally. "Much, thank you." Their eyes met, and for a moment, something unspoken passed between them, an awareness that transcended their current predicament. Then Yates cleared his throat and stood, reaching for his shirt. "We should get moving," he said, his voice rougher than before. "Long ride ahead." They set out under a canopy of stars, navigating by moonlight as they descended from the mountains and made their way northwest toward Prescott. The journey was arduous, particularly for Olivia, who hadn't ridden extensively before her flight from Santa Fe. But she endured without complaint, drawing strength from Yates's steady presence beside her. On the second night of their journey, they encountered a sudden summer thunderstorm. Lightning split the sky as rain poured down in sheets, quickly soaking them to the skin despite their oilskin coats. "There's a way station about 2 miles ahead," Yates shouted over the storm. "We can wait it out there." They urged their horses forward through the deluge, finally arriving at a small, abandoned stage-coach station. The roof leaked in places, but it was shelter from the worst of the storm. Yates managed to start a fire in the old hearth while Olivia tended to the horses in the attached stable. "You're shivering," Yates observed when she returned, water dripping from her clothes and hair. "I'm fine," Olivia insisted, though her teeth chattered with cold. Yates rummaged through their packs and produced a dry shirt. "Change into this. I'll turn my back." Olivia hesitated only briefly before accepting his offer. She changed quickly, the soft flannel of his shirt enveloping her like a blanket. It smelled of pine and leather, and something uniquely Yates. "You can turn around now," she said, settling near the fire to dry her hair. Yates had changed his own shirt and hung their wet clothes near the fire to dry. He sat across from her, the dancing flames illuminating his features in a warm glow. "We should reach Prescott by tomorrow evening," he said, pouring coffee from a small pot he'd set to boil. "Marshal Drake keeps an office near the courthouse." Olivia accepted the tin cup he offered, letting the warmth seep into her cold fingers. "And if he's not there, or if he doesn't believe us, he'll believe us," Yates said with confidence. "Drake's a good man, he'll at least listen." Thunder crashed outside and Olivia flinched involuntarily. Yates noticed but made no comment, instead continuing to talk in his steady, reassuring voice about Prescott, the marshal, their plans once they reached the city. His words washed over her like a balm, calming her frayed nerves. "You're good at this," she observed during a lull in conversation. "At what? Making people feel safe," Olivia said. "I haven't felt truly safe in, I can't remember how long, yet somehow, despite everything, I do now." Yates looked surprised, then pleased. "Good, that's good." "Why are you really helping me?" Olivia asked, the question that had been nagging at her since the beginning finally finding voice. "And don't say it's just because it's the right thing. There must be more." Yates was quiet for so long that Olivia thought he might not answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was contemplative. "When I was 16, I watched a man hang for a crime he didn't commit," he said, his gaze fixed on the fire. "He was a ranch hand accused of stealing horses. Everyone knew he was innocent. It was the foreman who'd sold those horses and blamed him. But the foreman was the owner's cousin, and this hand was just a Mexican nobody cared about." He paused, taking a sip of his coffee before continuing. "I tried to speak up. My father silenced me, said it wasn't our business. I've never forgiven myself for not trying harder, for not finding someone who would listen. I swore then that I'd never stand by again if I could help." "So I'm your redemption?" Olivia asked softly. Yates looked up, his eyes meeting hers across the fire. "No. You're a woman who deserves justice and safety. I'm just the man fortunate enough to be in a position to help." The simple sincerity in his words touched something deep within Olivia, a part of her heart she'd long since walled off from the world. For the first time in years, she felt the barriers beginning to crack. The storm raged through the night, but inside the way station, a different kind of storm was brewing, one of emotions long suppressed, and connections forming against all odds. Morning brought clear skies and the continuation of their journey. They rode harder now, sensing that time was running short. If Webb and Holloway had discovered they'd fled the ranch, they would be searching, perhaps even sending telegrams ahead to Prescott. Olivia's side ached constantly now, the wound irritated by days of riding, but she pushed through the pain. The stakes were too high for weakness. They reached Prescott as dusk was falling on the third day, the territorial capital's buildings silhouetted against the sunset. Unlike Eager's single main street, Prescott was a proper city with multiple streets, substantial buildings, and a bustling population. "We'll find a room first," Yates decided as they rode into town. "Clean up, rest, then seek out Drake in the morning." They chose a small hotel on a side street, less likely to draw attention than the grand establishments on the main square. Yates registered them as Mr. and Mrs. Nolan, a precaution that brought a blush to Olivia's cheeks, but one she understood was necessary. The room was modest but clean, with a single bed, washstand, and small sitting area. An adjoining room had been secured for Yates, another expense she knew strained his resources. "I'll check on the horses, then see about finding us some dinner," Yates said after depositing their bags. "Lock the door behind me, and don't open it for anyone but me." Alone in the room, Olivia took advantage of the opportunity to wash properly for the first time in days. The hot water was heaven on her sore muscles, and she carefully cleaned her wound, relieved to see it was healing despite the rigors of their journey. She had just finished dressing in the cleanest clothes from her pack when a knock came at the door. "Olivia, it's me," Yates called softly. She opened the door to find him carrying a tray laden with food and a bottle of wine. He had also clearly taken time to clean up his face, freshly shaved, hair still damp from washing. "I thought we could eat here," he explained. "Safer than the dining room downstairs." They shared the simple meal at the small table by the window, the familiarity of dining together now comfortable after days on the trail. Olivia found herself studying Yates in the lamplight, noticing details she'd overlooked before: a small scar at his temple, the way one corner of his mouth lifted slightly higher than the other when he smiled, the surprising gentleness of his hands despite their strength. "You're staring," Yates observed, amusement in his eyes. "I'm sorry," Olivia said, embarrassed at being caught. "I was just thinking that I know so little about you despite everything we've been through." "What would you like to know?" he asked, refilling their glasses with wine. And so they talked, really talked, delving deeper than they had before. Yates told her about his childhood in Texas, his years as a young cowhand, the dreams he still harbored for his ranch. Olivia shared stories of her parents and younger brother, their life in Boston before the fire, her love of teaching the children in her care. As the night deepened and the wine bottle emptied, their conversation grew more intimate, more revealing. "I've never told anyone some of these things," Olivia confessed as midnight approached. "There's never been anyone I trusted enough." "And you trust me?" Yates asked, his voice low. "With my life," Olivia replied without hesitation, "though I still don't understand why you trust me." "I've brought nothing but trouble to your door." Yates reached across the table, his fingers brushing hers in a touch so light it might have been accidental, but his eyes, holding hers, made it clear it was anything but. "You've brought a lot more than trouble, Olivia Farrow," he said quietly. The air between them seemed to thicken, charged with possibility. Olivia felt her heart racing, unsure what to do with the unfamiliar emotions coursing through her. We should get some rest," she finally said, withdrawing her hand reluctantly. "Tomorrow will be important." Yates nodded, rising from his chair. "Of course, I'll be next door if you need anything." At the doorway to his adjoining room he paused. "Olivia." "Yes. Whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know I don't regret any of this, not for a moment." Before she could respond, he disappeared into his room, closing the door softly behind him. Olivia lay awake long into the night, her thoughts too turbulent for sleep. She had come to Prescott seeking justice, safety, an end to running. She hadn't expected to find someone who made her contemplate a future beyond mere survival. Morning came too quickly, bringing with it the reality of their situation. They breakfasted early, then made their way to the marshal's office near the courthouse. The streets of Prescott were already bustling with activity, forcing them to keep their heads down and move quickly to avoid notice. The marshal's office was a solid brick building with U.S. Marshal painted in gold letters on the door. Yates entered first, scanning the room before motioning for Olivia to follow. A clerk sat at a desk near the entrance, sorting through papers. "Can I help you folks? We need to speak with Marshal Drake," Yates said. "It's urgent." "Marshal's in his office," the clerk replied, gesturing to a door at the back of the room. "Go on through." Samuel Drake was a large man with a thick gray mustache and piercing blue eyes that missed nothing. He looked up from his paperwork as they entered, recognition dawning on his face when he saw Yates. "Nolan," he said, rising to shake Yates's hand. "Been a while. What brings you to Prescott?" "Trouble, Sam," Yates replied grimly. "This is Miss Olivia Farrow. She's in danger and we need your help." Drake gestured for them to sit, his expression serious as he listened to their story. Olivia recounted everything the ledgers she'd discovered: Harrington's murder, her flight across the territory, Webb and Holloway's pursuit. Yates filled in the details of her arrival in Eager and their journey to Prescott. When they finished, Drake was silent for a long moment, his fingers steepled before him. "That's quite a tale," he finally said, "and a serious accusation against some powerful men." "It's the truth," Olivia insisted. "Every word." "I believe you," Drake said, surprising her. "Webb's name has crossed my desk before, though we've never had enough evidence to move against him, and this Holloway sounds like a hired gun I've heard rumors about." "Then you'll help us?" Yates asked. Drake sighed heavily. "I can offer protection while you're in Prescott, but without evidence, I can't make arrests or bring charges, and my jurisdiction ends at the territorial border. I can't follow you to Santa Fe." "We need to get those ledgers," Olivia said firmly. "It's the only way to clear my name and stop these men." "It's risky," Drake warned. "If they've declared you a murderer, you'll be arrested on sight in Santa Fe." "Not if no one recognizes her," Yates suggested. "And not if we have help." Drake considered this, then nodded slowly. "I might know someone in Santa Fe, a deputy marshal named Garcia. He's honest, discreet. I could wire him, arrange for assistance when you arrive." "That would help," Yates agreed. "And we'll need official papers, something that would allow us to access Harrington's house without raising suspicion." For the next hour, they formulated a plan. Drake would provide them with documentation identifying Yates as an investigator working for the territorial government, with Olivia as his assistant. He would wire Deputy Marshal Garcia to meet them in Santa Fe and assist in retrieving the ledgers. Once they had the evidence, they would return to Prescott, where Drake would convene a grand jury to hear the case against Webb and his associates. "It's still dangerous," Drake cautioned as they prepared to leave. "If Webb has connections as high up as you say, there could be officials in Santa Fe already watching for you." "We understand the risk," Olivia said, her resolve strengthening with each passing hour. "But I can't keep running forever." "Stay at your hotel today," Drake advised. "I'll send my deputy over with the papers and some supplies this afternoon. Leave for Santa Fe at first light tomorrow." As they stepped out of the marshal's office, Olivia felt a strange mixture of hope and trepidation. They had an ally now, a plan, a path forward. But the most dangerous part of their journey still lay ahead. They spent the remainder of the day in their hotel rooms, venturing out only briefly to purchase additional supplies for the journey to Santa Fe. Olivia used the time to rest, knowing she would need all her strength for what was to come. Yates was quieter than usual, his brow furrowed in thought as he cleaned his revolver and checked their gear. Olivia watched him from her seat by the window, sensing his concern. Having second thoughts? She asked softly. Yates looked up, surprise crossing his features. About helping you? No. Never. But something's troubling you. He set aside his weapon with a sigh. I'm worried about what we'll find in Santa Fe. If Webb's as connected as you say, the ledgers might be gone, or it could be a trap with men waiting for your return. I've considered that possibility, Olivia admitted. But I have to try. If not for myself, then for Mr. Harrington. He may have been involved in corruption, but he didn't deserve to die for it. Yates crossed the room to join her by the window, his presence reassuring in its solidity. We'll be careful. And we'll have Deputy Marshal Garcia to help us. If he's trustworthy, Olivia added, voicing the doubt that had been nagging at her. We're placing a lot of faith in a man we've never met. Sam Drake wouldn't recommend someone he didn't trust completely, Yates assured her. He's a good judge of character. Olivia managed a small smile. Like you, I'd like to think so, Yates replied, his own lips quirking upward. I certainly made the right judgment about you. The charged atmosphere from the previous evening returned, intensified by the uncertainty of their future. Olivia found herself acutely aware of Yates's proximity, the warmth radiating from his body, the scent of leather and soap that she'd come to associate with him. A knock at the door shattered the moment. Yates moved swiftly, hand going to his revolver as he approached the door cautiously. Who's there? He called. Deputy Marshal Wilson, sir. Marshal Drake sent me with a package for you. Yates opened the door a crack, verifying the man's identity before allowing him entry. The deputy handed over a sealed envelope and a small bundle wrapped in brown paper. Marshal says to tell you he's arranged everything as discussed, the deputy said. The person you're to meet will be waiting at the location noted in the letter. Thank you, Yates replied, accepting the items. Any news we should be aware of? The deputy glanced at Olivia, then back to Yates. Marshal received a wire from Eager this morning. 2 men asking questions about a red-headed woman and a rancher. They've widened their search. Olivia's stomach clenched with fear. Webb and Holloway were on their trail. Understood, Yates said grimly. Anything else? Just be careful, sir, the deputy replied. Marshal says these men don't play by the rules. After the deputy left, Yates opened the envelope. Inside were official-looking documents identifying him as Yates Nolan, special investigator for the Arizona Territorial Government, and Olivia as his clerk. A separate letter contained instructions for meeting Deputy Marshal Garcia in Santa Fe and a small map showing the safest route through the mountains. We leave at dawn, Yates decided, studying the map. It's about 4 days to Santa Fe if we push hard. That night, as they prepared for sleep in their separate rooms, Olivia found herself reluctant to close the connecting door. Tomorrow they would ride into even greater danger, and the comfort of Yates's presence had become something she depended on more than she cared to admit. Yates. She called softly through the partially open door. He appeared in the doorway, already dressed for bed in a simple shirt and trousers. Everything all right, Olivia hesitated, unsure how to express what she was feeling. I wanted to thank you again, for everything. If something happens tomorrow, or in Santa Fe, I want you to know how grateful I am. Yates's expression softened. Nothing's going to happen, Olivia. We're going to get those ledgers, clear your name, and put Webb and his associates behind bars where they belong. And then? She asked, the question that had been hovering at the edges of her mind finally surfacing. And then, Yates said quietly, you'll be free to choose your own path, whatever that may be. The implication hung in the air between them that her path might lead back to his ranch to him. But neither spoke it aloud, the future still too uncertain, too dependent on their success in the dangerous days ahead. "Good night, Yates," Olivia finally said, her voice little more than a whisper. "Good night, Olivia," he replied, his eyes holding hers for a moment longer before he retreated into his room. They left Prescott before sunrise, taking a lesser-known trail east toward Santa Fe. The route Marshal Drake had marked would keep them away from main roads and settlements where Webb's men might be watching. It was longer, rougher terrain, but safer for fugitives. The journey was arduous, testing both riders and horses as they navigated steep mountain passes and crossed rushing streams swollen with summer rains. They camped each night in hidden locations, keeping their fire small and taking turns standing watch. On the third night, as they made camp in a sheltered canyon, Olivia noticed Yates wincing as he dismounted. His old shoulder injury was clearly troubling him again after days of hard riding. Without a word, she retrieved the salve from their medical supplies and motioned for him to sit on a fallen log near their small fire. This time, there was no awkwardness as she helped him remove his shirt and applied the healing ointment to his scarred shoulder. "You'd make a fine doctor," Yates commented as her fingers worked the tension from his muscles. "I considered it once," Olivia admitted, surprising herself with the confession. "Before my parents died. My father was a physician and I often assisted him with his patients." "Why didn't you pursue it afterward?" Olivia's hand stilled momentarily. "A woman alone with no money and no connections. Medical schools don't open their doors to such applicants. Being a governess was respectable, available, and required skills I already possessed." "You could still do it," Yates suggested. "After all this is over." The casual confidence with which he spoke of her future, as if it were a given that she would have one worth planning for, touched Olivia deeply. For so long she had lived day to day, never allowing herself to hope for more. "Perhaps," she said softly, her hands completing their ministrations. "There, that should help." As she moved to withdraw, Yates caught her wrist gently. "Thank you," he said, his voice rough with an emotion she couldn't quite name. Their eyes met in the flickering firelight, and for a breathless moment, Olivia thought he might kiss her. Part of her, a growing, insistent part, hoped he would. But Yates released her wrist after a gentle squeeze, the moment passing like a shadow across the moon. They reached the outskirts of Santa Fe late on the fourth day, pausing on a ridge overlooking the city. In the fading light, the adobe buildings glowed golden against the backdrop of mountains, a beautiful sight that filled Olivia with dread rather than pleasure. "We'll enter after dark," Yates decided, studying the city below. "Find rooms at the hotel Drake recommended, then meet Garcia tomorrow." The hotel was on a side street, modest enough not to draw attention but respectable enough to suit their cover as government investigators. They registered under their false identities, Yates handling the transaction while Olivia kept her face partially concealed by a shawl. Their rooms were adjacent, though without a connecting door this time. After ensuring Olivia was safely settled, Yates went to make arrangements for their meeting with Deputy Marshal Garcia the following morning. Left alone, Olivia stood at the window, looking out at the city that had once been her home. Somewhere out there was the Harrington house, where she had lived and worked for nearly a year, where she had witnessed a murder that changed her life forever. The thought of returning there filled her with apprehension, but she steeled herself against the fear. Too much depended on her courage now. A soft knock at her door startled her from her thoughts. She approached cautiously, hand on the small derringer Yates had given her for protection. "Who is it?" she called softly. "It's me," Yates replied. She opened the door to find him looking grim, a folded paper in his hand. "What's wrong?" "Change of plans," he said, entering quickly and closing the door behind him. "I received this note at the front desk. It's from Garcia." Olivia took the paper, scanning its contents with growing alarm. The deputy marshal had written that Webb was in Santa Fe, that he had men watching the Harrington house, and that he suspected at least one member of the local police was in Webb's pocket. "He wants to meet us tomorrow at noon, at a cantina on the edge of town," Yates explained. "Says it's safer than trying to go through official channels with Webb's men watching." "You trust this?" Olivia asked, handing the note back. "The note came through the contact Drake arranged," Yates replied. "And the caution makes sense if Webb has infiltrated the local law." Olivia nodded, accepting his assessment. "So we wait until tomorrow." "We wait," Yates confirmed, "and stay out of sight until then." They shared a simple meal in Olivia's room, delivered by room service to minimize their exposure. As they ate, Yates spread out a rough map of Santa Fe on the bed. "Show me where the Harrington house is located," he requested. Olivia pointed to an area on the north side of the city. "Here, on Alameda Street. It's a large house set back from the road with a garden in front and servant quarters in the rear. And the study where you saw the ledgers. First floor at the back of the house. The window I saw the men exit through opens onto a side garden." Olivia closed her eyes, visualizing the room. The ledgers were kept in a locked cabinet behind the desk. Mr. Harrington always kept the key in his waistcoat pocket. "If the ledgers are still there, they'll be our best evidence," Yates mused. "But getting to them won't be easy if Webb has men watching the house." "The servants might help," Olivia suggested. "Maria, the housekeeper, was always kind to me. If she's still there, she might be willing to let us in through the kitchen." They continued planning late into the night, considering every possibility, every contingency. When they finally exhausted all options, Yates rose to return to his own room. At the door, he turned back to Olivia. "Try to get some sleep. Tomorrow will be challenging." "Yates," Olivia said, stopping him before he could leave. If things don't go as planned tomorrow, I want you to know something." He waited, his expression softening as he looked at her. "These past weeks with you," she continued, gathering her courage, "they've changed me. Even with all the danger, all the uncertainty, I've felt more alive, more myself, than I have in years. Whatever happens tomorrow, I won't regret that." Yates crossed the room in 2 strides, his hands coming up to frame her face with a gentleness that belied their strength. "Nothing's going to happen to you tomorrow," he said, his voice low and fierce. "Not while I'm breathing." And then he was kissing her, his lips warm and insistent against hers, and Olivia was kissing him back, her arms sliding around his neck as she rose on tiptoes to meet him. All the unspoken feelings between them, all the tension and attraction that had been building since their first meeting, poured into that kiss, leaving them both breathless when they finally parted. "I've wanted to do that since the first time you argued with me," Yates admitted, his forehead resting against hers. Olivia laughed softly, her heart lighter than it had been in months despite the dangers that awaited them. "I've wanted you to since the first time you told me I deserved kindness." Yates kissed her once more, briefly but with no less feeling. "Get some rest," he murmured against her lips. "I'll be next door if you need me." The implication of his words hung in the air between them, an invitation Olivia was tempted to accept. But they both knew tomorrow required clear heads and focused minds. There would be time for more, for everything, once they had secured the evidence and their safety. "Good night, Yates," she whispered. "Good night, Olivia," he replied, reluctantly releasing her and moving to the door. "Lock this behind me." Morning brought clear skies and a sense of anticipation mingled with dread. They breakfasted early in Olivia's room, reviewing their plans one final time before preparing to meet Deputy Marshal Garcia. The cantina was on the outskirts of town, a modest establishment frequented by workers from nearby farms and ranches. They arrived early, securing a table in the corner with a clear view of both the entrance and the back door. "How will we recognize Garcia?" Olivia asked, nervously smoothing her skirt. "Drake said he'd be wearing a red bandana," Yates replied, his eyes constantly scanning the room. "And he knows to look for us." They ordered coffee and waited, tension mounting as noon approached and passed with no sign of the deputy marshal. By 12:30, Yates's expression had darkened with concern. "Something's wrong," he muttered, his hand resting near his holstered revolver. "He should have been here by now." At 1:45, a young Mexican boy entered the cantina and approached their table. "Señor Nalan?" he asked quietly. Yates nodded cautiously. The boy handed him a folded piece of paper. "A man asked me to give you this. He said it is very important." Yates slipped the boy a coin before opening the note. His face paled as he read its contents. "What is it?" Olivia asked, alarm rising within her. "Garcia's been shot," Yates replied grimly, passing her the note. "He's at a doctor's house on Cal de San Francisco. Says we need to come immediately, that he has critical information." Olivia read the hastily scrawled message with growing horror. "It could be a trap." "It could be," Yates agreed. "But if Garcia is truly injured and has information for us, we can't ignore it." They paid for their coffee and left the cantina, moving cautiously through the streets of Santa Fe. Yates had his hand on his revolver, eyes constantly scanning for any sign of danger or pursuit. The address in the note led them to a small adobe house set back from the street. A weathered sign identifying it as the office of Dr. Martinez hung beside the door. Yates knocked, his body positioned protectively in front of Olivia. The door was opened by an elderly Mexican man with silver hair and kind eyes. "Señor Nalan, please come in quickly." Inside, the house was cool and dimly lit. The doctor led them through a small waiting area to a back room where a man lay on a bed, his torso wrapped in bandages. Despite his pallor, Olivia recognized him as a lawman from his bearing. "Deputy Marshal Garcia?" Yates asked, approaching the bed. The injured man nodded weakly. "Nalan." "Miss Farrow, sorry about the change in plans." His voice was strained, each word an effort. "What happened?" Yates asked, kneeling beside the bed. "Ambushed last night," Garcia replied. "Webb's men. They know you're here." He paused, gathering strength before continuing. "The Harrington house is being watched. 4 men rotating shifts. Webb himself is staying at the Grand Hotel." "How did they know we were coming?" Olivia asked, fear coiling in her stomach. Garcia's eyes met hers, dark with pain and regret. "Someone in Prescott must have tipped them off. Or they intercepted Drake's wire. Either way, they're waiting for you to make a move." "The ledgers," Yates prompted. "Are they still in the house?" "According to my source, yes," Garcia confirmed. "Webb's been searching for them since Harrington's death but hasn't found them yet. The house has been sealed as a crime scene, with only the housekeeper permitted entry for maintenance." Olivia's heart quickened at this news. "Maria is still there," Garcia nodded. "Maria Vasquez. She's been questioned repeatedly about your whereabouts but maintains she knows nothing." "She might help us," Olivia said to Yates, "if we could get a message to her." "Too risky," Garcia interrupted, wincing as he shifted position. "Webb's men would intercept it, but there might be another way." He gestured weakly toward a small table where his effects were neatly arranged. "My badge and papers are there. With those, you could enter the house officially as investigators from the territorial government." "Using your authority?" Yates questioned, frowning. "That's a serious offense, Garcia." "So is murder," the deputy marshal replied grimly. "Webb and his men killed Harrington. They tried to kill me. They'll kill both of you given the chance. The law fails sometimes, Nolan. When it does, justice needs a helping hand. Yates considered the deputy's words, his expression troubled. Olivia could see the conflict within him, his respect for the law warring with his desire to see justice done and keep her safe. "If we're caught using your badge," he began. "I'll say it was stolen," Garcia replied, "or that I authorized its use. Either way, the risk is mine to take." After a moment's further hesitation, Yates nodded. "Thank you." Garcia's eyes moved to Olivia. "Be careful, Miss Farrow. These men are dangerous and they're desperate. Whatever's in those ledgers has them terrified." "I will," she promised. "And when this is over, I'll make sure everyone knows the truth about Harrington's death and about your courage in helping us." A ghost of a smile touched the deputy's pale lips. "Just find those ledgers. The rest will take care of itself." They left Garcia in the doctor's care, armed with his badge and official papers. Outside, they found a quiet spot in a nearby plaza to formulate their plan. "We'll go tonight," Yates decided. "After dark. The badge should get us past any official guards, but we'll need to be careful of Webb's men watching the house." "And once inside," Olivia asked, "we find the ledgers as quickly as possible, then leave the same way we came in. If Maria is there, your connection with her might help, but we can't count on it." The hours until nightfall stretched endlessly. They returned to their hotel, gathering the supplies they would need for their mission and preparing for all possibilities. As dusk approached, Yates checked his revolver one final time while Olivia changed into dark clothing that would blend into the shadows. "Ready?" Yates asked as the last light faded from the sky. Olivia nodded, her heart pounding but her resolve firm. "Ready." They moved through the streets of Santa Fe like shadows, avoiding the main thoroughfares and keeping to alleys and side streets. The Harrington house, when they finally approached it, was dark except for a single light burning in the kitchen. "Guard at the front gate," Yates murmured, pointing to a uniformed policeman standing duty. "And there, across the street, one of Webb's men, I'd wager." Olivia followed his gaze to a figure lurking in the shadows of a nearby building. "How do we get past both?" "We don't try to hide," Yates replied, straightening his coat and affixing Garcia's badge to his vest. "We walk right up to the front gate, bold as brass, and present ourselves as investigators." It was a risky strategy, but Olivia saw the logic. Attempted stealth would only arouse suspicion, while an official approach might disarm both the guard and Webb's watcher. They approached the gate openly, Yates leading with confident strides. The policeman straightened as they neared, hand moving to his holstered weapon. "Halt," he called. "This property is sealed by order of the court." Yates produced the badge and papers, his manner authoritative. "Deputy Marshal Nolan, Territorial Investigation Bureau. This is my associate, Miss Wilson. We're here on official business regarding the Harrington murder." The guard examined the documents carefully, his expression dubious. "Bit late for an investigation, isn't it?" "New evidence has come to light," Yates replied smoothly. "We need to examine the scene again before the house is released to the family." After a moment's hesitation, the guard nodded and unlocked the gate. "The housekeeper's inside. She has orders to assist any official investigation." "Thank you, officer," Yates said, guiding Olivia through the gate with a hand at the small of her back. As they approached the house, Olivia fought to control her racing heart. Memories flooded back of her time as governess here, of the night she discovered Harrington's body, of her desperate flight into the darkness. Now she was returning, walking deliberately into the danger she'd been fleeing for weeks. They knocked at the kitchen door, as it was the only one showing light. After a moment, it opened to reveal a middle-aged Mexican woman with graying hair and tired eyes. Those eyes widened in shock when she recognized Olivia. "Dios mío, Miss Farrow," she gasped, quickly pulling them inside and closing the door. "What are you doing here? It is not safe, Maria," Olivia said, embracing the woman briefly. "I know it's dangerous, but I need your help. We need to find some ledgers that were in Mr. Harrington's study." Maria crossed herself nervously. "Many men have searched for these books. Bad men with cold eyes and quick tempers. They threaten me, search the house again and again, but find nothing." "That's because they don't know where to look," Olivia replied. "I do, but we need to move quickly." The housekeeper nodded, her initial shock giving way to determination. "What can I do to help? Keep watch," Yates instructed. "If anyone approaches the house, warn us immediately." Maria led them through the darkened house to Harrington's study, a room that had been sealed since the murder. The door still bore an official notice declaring it a crime scene, but the seal had been broken numerous times by investigators. Olivia paused in the doorway, memories of that terrible night washing over her. The desk where Harrington had lain slumped in death, the window through which his killers had fled, the cabinet containing the damning ledgers, everything was exactly as she remembered. "The ledgers were in here," she said, moving to the ornate cabinet behind the desk, "in a locked compartment at the bottom." "And the key?" Yates asked, scanning the room for any sign of disturbance. "Mr. Harrington kept it in his waistcoat pocket," Olivia replied, frowning. "But if the police took his personal effects—" "They did," Maria confirmed from the doorway. "But I cleaned his clothing before they came. The key was there, and I kept it safe." She reached into her apron pocket and produced a small brass key. "I knew it must be important, the way he always guarded it." Olivia took the key with trembling fingers. "Maria, you're a treasure." The cabinet lock yielded easily to the key, revealing a hidden compartment containing 3 leather-bound ledgers. Olivia removed them carefully, her heart racing as she opened the topmost volume. "These are them," she confirmed, scanning the columns of figures and names. "Payments to officials, dates, amounts. Everything we need to prove the corruption." Yates quickly wrapped the ledgers in a cloth and tucked them into the satchel he had brought for this purpose. "We need to go now," he urged, "before someone realizes what we've found." They had just reached the kitchen when Maria suddenly stiffened, peering out the window. "Someone is at the gate," she whispered urgently. "2 men speaking with the guard." Yates moved to the window, his expression darkening as he recognized the figures. "Webb and Holloway," he murmured. "They must have been watching the house." "Is there another way out?" he asked Maria. "The servant's door at the back of the garden," she replied, already moving to unlock it. "It leads to an alley behind the property." "Go," Yates urged Olivia, the satchel with the ledgers slung across his body. "I'll be right behind you." They slipped into the garden, staying close to the wall where shadows were deepest. Olivia could hear voices at the front of the house, now Webb's cultured tones contrasting with Holloway's rougher speech as they argued with the guard. The servant's gate was small, partially hidden by overgrown vines. Maria's key unlocked it, revealing a narrow alley beyond. Olivia stepped through, Yates following close behind. "Which way?" he whispered. "Left leads toward the plaza, right toward the river," Olivia replied. "The river then," Yates decided. "Less likely to be watched." They moved swiftly but quietly down the alley, alert for any sound of pursuit. They had just reached the end when a shout rang out behind them. "There, by the servants' gate." "Run," Yates ordered, pushing Olivia ahead of him as footsteps pounded in their direction. They ran through the maze of alleys and side streets, Olivia leading the way based on her knowledge of the city. Behind them, Webb's men gave chase, their pursuit relentless. "We need to split up," Yates gasped as they paused momentarily in the shadow of a church. I'll draw them off. You take the ledgers to Garcia. No, Olivia protested, gripping his arm. I won't leave you. Olivia, listen, Yates insisted, his voice urgent. The ledgers are what matter. If they catch us both, all of this has been for nothing. Garcia is at the doctor's house on Cal de San Francisco. Get the ledgers to him, and he'll make sure they reach Drake in Prescott. Before she could argue further, Yates pressed the satchel into her hands and kissed her quickly but fiercely. I'll find you, he promised. Now go. With a final desperate glance at him, Olivia clutched the satchel and ran in the direction of the doctor's house. Behind her, she heard Yates moving in the opposite direction, making enough noise to attract their pursuers. The streets were largely deserted at this late hour, allowing her to move quickly without drawing attention. She had just turned onto Cal de San Francisco when a figure stepped out from a doorway, blocking her path. Victor Holloway stood before her, his thin lips curved in a cruel smile. "Miss Farrow," he drawled, revolver leveled at her chest. "What a pleasure to see you again." Olivia froze, her mind racing for a way out. The satchel with the ledgers felt impossibly heavy against her side. "Mr. Webb will be so pleased," Holloway continued, stepping closer. "He's been most anxious to speak with you about what you witnessed that night." "I saw you murder Mr. Harrington," Olivia said boldly, buying time as she edged backward. "You and Webb, I saw everything." Holloway's smile didn't falter. "A pity no one will believe the ravings of a fugitive governess. Especially after we find your body tomorrow, a tragic suicide by a woman consumed with guilt over killing her employer." "You won't get away with this," Olivia warned, her back now pressed against the wall of a building. "People know the truth, do they?" Holloway asked with mock curiosity. "Your cowboy friend, perhaps? I believe my associates are dealing with him as we speak." Fear for Yates surged through Olivia, momentarily distracting her. Holloway seized the opportunity, lunging forward to grab her arm. Olivia reacted instinctively, bringing the heavy satchel up and swinging it with all her strength into Holloway's face. The impact knocked him sideways, his revolver discharging harmlessly into the ground. Olivia didn't wait to see if he recovered. She ran, her lungs burning as she sprinted the final distance to the doctor's house. She pounded on the door, glancing frantically over her shoulder to see if Holloway was in pursuit. The door opened to reveal Dr. Martinez, his expression alarmed at her disheveled appearance. "Please," she gasped. "Deputy Marshal Garcia. I need to see him immediately." The doctor ushered her inside, locking the door firmly behind her before leading her to Garcia's room. The deputy marshal was awake, his face drawn with pain but his eyes alert. "Miss Farrow," he said, struggling to sit up as she entered. "Did you find them?" "Yes," Olivia replied, opening the satchel to show him the ledgers. "But we were discovered. Yates. He drew them off while I brought these to you. Holloway found me on the way here, but I managed to escape him." Garcia's expression darkened at the mention of Holloway. "That man is dangerous. Where is Nalan now?" "I don't know," Olivia admitted, her voice breaking slightly. "We separated near the church on Plaza Street." The deputy marshal exchanged a significant look with the doctor. "Martinez, fetch your pistol. Miss Farrow may have been followed here." As if in response to his words, a pounding came at the front door, followed by a familiar voice. "Olivia! Garcia! It's Yates!" Relief flooded through Olivia as she rushed to the door, the doctor close behind with his pistol ready. Through the peephole, they could see Yates standing on the doorstep, disheveled but apparently unharmed. The doctor opened the door quickly, allowing Yates to stumble inside before securing it again. Olivia threw herself into his arms, heedless of propriety or their audience. "You're safe," she breathed, feeling his arms tighten around her. "Barely," Yates replied grimly. Webb's men were right behind me until I lost them in the market square, but they'll figure out where we've gone soon enough. In Garcia's room, they quickly brought the deputy marshal up to speed. The ledgers contained exactly what they had hoped: detailed records of bribes paid to officials throughout the territory, including several federal marshals and a territorial judge. "This is more than enough to bring Webb and his entire operation down," Garcia said, paging through one of the volumes. "But we need to get these to Prescott immediately. Webb will do anything to prevent that. We can leave tonight," Yates suggested, "while they're still searching the city." Garcia shook his head. "The city gates are closed until dawn, and Webb will have men watching all roads out of Santa Fe by morning." He thought for a moment, then made a decision. "There's a military patrol leaving for Fort Union at dawn. The captain is a friend and beyond Webb's influence. If you can join that patrol, they'll escort you as far as the territorial border. From there, you can make your way to Prescott." "Where does the patrol assemble?" Yates asked. "The cavalry barracks at the north edge of town," Garcia replied. "I'll write a letter for Captain Reeves explaining the situation." While Garcia wrote, Dr. Martinez prepared supplies for their journey: food, water, and additional bandages for Olivia's healing wound, which had begun to ache again after the exertion of their flight. "What about you?" Olivia asked Garcia as he handed the sealed letter to Yates. "Webb will know you helped us." "I'll be fine," the deputy marshal assured her. "Martinez will move me to a safer location at dawn. My primary concern is getting those ledgers to Prescott." Before they departed, Yates secured the ledgers in a special pouch designed to be worn beneath clothing. "Just in case we're separated again," he explained as he helped Olivia position it under her blouse. They left the doctor's house through a back entrance, moving cautiously through the pre-dawn darkness toward the cavalry barracks. The streets were quiet, but Olivia couldn't shake the feeling they were being watched. They were just approaching the barracks when a voice called out behind them. "That's far enough, Nolan." They turned to find Marshal Webb standing in the street, Holloway and two other men flanking him. All were armed, their weapons trained on Yates and Olivia. "Webb," Yates acknowledged coldly, positioning himself slightly in front of Olivia. "I believe you have something that belongs to me," Webb said, his refined voice at odds with the menace in his eyes. "The ledgers, if you please." "They never belonged to you," Olivia replied, finding courage in Yates's steady presence. "They belonged to Mr. Harrington, whom you murdered." Webb's smile was chilling. "Such accusations from a wanted murderess. How unfortunate that you won't live to repeat them in court." "It's over, Webb," Yates said firmly. "The ledgers are already on their way to Prescott. Marshal Drake has copies. Killing us won't save you now." A flicker of uncertainty crossed Webb's face before his confident mask slipped back into place. "A bluff, Mr. Nolan. A poor one at that. The ledgers never left Harrington's study until tonight, and they won't leave Santa Fe." He gestured to Holloway. "Search them." Holloway stepped forward, a cruel smile playing on his lips as he approached Olivia. Yates moved to intercept him, but froze when Webb cocked his revolver. "I wouldn't, Cowboy," Webb warned. "Not if you want the lady to live through the next minute." Holloway's hands were rough as he searched Olivia, his touch lingering inappropriately until she thought she might be sick. But the special pouch remained undetected, hidden beneath the layers of her clothing. "Nothing," Holloway reported with disappointment after searching both of them. "They must have stashed the ledgers somewhere." Webb's eyes narrowed suspiciously. "Where are they, Nolan?" "The doctor's house. Already with the military patrol, as I said," Yates replied steadily. "They're on their way to Prescott. You've lost, Webb." For a moment, Webb seemed to waver, uncertainty clouding his features. Then his expression hardened. "If they're truly gone, then you're of no further use to me," Holloway, dispose of them. Make it look like the woman shot the man, then herself in remorse. Holloway grinned, raising his revolver. With pleasure. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion for Olivia. As Holloway took aim, the sound of approaching horses filled the street. A voice called out, "Federal marshals, drop your weapons." Webb and his men turned in surprise, momentarily distracted. It was all the opportunity Yates needed. He launched himself at Holloway, driving the man to the ground as his revolver discharged harmlessly into the air. Chaos erupted in the street. Webb's other men fired at the approaching marshals, who returned fire with greater accuracy. Olivia ducked behind a water trough as bullets whizzed overhead. Through the confusion, she saw Yates and Holloway struggling for control of the revolver. The gunman was stronger, but Yates fought with the desperation of a man with everything to lose. The weapon discharged again, and one of the men cried out in pain. Horror filled Olivia as she saw Yates slump backward, blood spreading across his shirt. Holloway rose to his feet, the smoking revolver in his hand as he turned toward Olivia's hiding place. Before he could take aim, 3 shots rang out in quick succession. Holloway staggered, a look of disbelief crossing his face before he collapsed to the ground. Behind where he had stood was Deputy Marshal Garcia, pale and unsteady on his feet but determined, his revolver still raised. "Doctor." Martinez supported him, his own pistol in his free hand. "Garcia," Webb gasped, backing away as his remaining men fell to the marshal's superior firepower. "You should be dead." "So should Miss Farrow," Garcia replied grimly. "Yet here we are." Webb turned to flee, but found his escape cut off by mounted marshals. Surrounded and outnumbered, he finally lowered his weapon in surrender. Olivia rushed to Yates's side, tears streaming down her face as she pressed her hands to the wound in his chest. "Stay with me," she begged, her voice breaking. "Please, Yates, stay with me." His eyes flickered open, focusing on her face with effort. "Olivia," he whispered, "the ledgers." "Safe," she assured him, feeling for the pouch still secured beneath her clothing. "We did it, Yates. Webb is arrested." "It's over." A faint smile touched his lips before his eyes closed again, his breathing shallow and labored. Dr. Martinez knelt beside them, his experienced hands quickly assessing the wound. "He needs immediate attention," the doctor said urgently. "We must get him to my surgery." The next hours passed in a blur of fear and desperate hope. Olivia paced the doctor's waiting room while Martinez worked to save Yates's life, extracting the bullet that had lodged dangerously close to his heart. Deputy Marshal Garcia, who had defied his own injuries to come to their aid, sat nearby, the ledgers now in his official custody. "He received my message," Garcia explained when Olivia asked how he had known to bring reinforcements. "I sent a boy to the barracks as soon as you left, warning Captain Reeves that you might be intercepted. He dispatched men immediately." "Thank God he did," Olivia replied fervently. "And thank God you came yourself, despite your injuries." Garcia shrugged, though the movement clearly caused him pain. "Holloway tried to kill me once. I wasn't about to let him succeed with you and Nalan." Finally, as dawn broke over Santa Fe, Dr. Martinez emerged from the surgery, exhaustion evident in every line of his face. "He will live," the doctor announced, bringing a cry of relief from Olivia. "The bullet missed his heart by less than an inch. He is young and strong. With proper care, he should make a full recovery." Olivia's legs gave way beneath her, and she sank onto a chair, overwhelmed by gratitude and lingering fear. "When can I see him?" "He is unconscious now and will remain so for some time," Martinez replied. "But you may sit with him if you wish." Yates lay still and pale on the surgery table, his chest heavily bandaged, his breathing shallow but steady. Olivia took his hand in hers, drawing comfort from its warmth. "You have to recover," she whispered, pressing his fingers to her lips. "You have a ranch to run, cattle to tend. And you have me if you want me." The days that followed were filled with tension and gradual hope. Yates remained unconscious for nearly 2 days, his body fighting to heal from the trauma. Olivia rarely left his side, sleeping in a chair beside his bed, speaking to him constantly, though she had no way of knowing if he could hear her. She told him about her childhood in Boston, her dreams of becoming a doctor like her father, her love of teaching the children in her care. She described the future she now dared to imagine, one that included him, his ranch, a life built together. On the morning of the third day, as she was reading aloud from a newspaper article about Webb and Holloway's arrest, Yates's fingers twitched in hers. She looked up to find his eyes open, watching her with a mixture of pain and wonder. "Olivia," he murmured, his voice rough from disuse. "I'm here," she replied, joy and relief washing over her as she leaned closer. "Don't try to move. You've been shot, but the doctor says you'll recover completely." "Webb?" he asked, wincing as he tried to shift position. "Arrested along with his entire network," Olivia assured him. "The ledgers provided all the evidence needed." Marshal Drake arrived from Prescott yesterday to personally escort Webb back for trial. Satisfaction flickered in Yates's eyes. "Good." Then, with visible effort, he squeezed her hand. "You're safe now, truly safe." "Thanks to you," Olivia said softly, tears threatening. "You nearly died protecting me." "Worth it," Yates replied simply, his gaze never leaving her face. "Every risk, every moment of pain, all worth it." Olivia could no longer hold back her tears. "Why?" she asked, voicing the question that had haunted her since the beginning. "Why was I worth so much to you?" Yates's expression softened, a smile touching his lips despite his obvious discomfort. "Because from the moment I saw you stumbling down that street in Eager, I knew my life had changed. Because I recognized something in you, a strength, a determination, a goodness that matched what I've always tried to be." He paused, gathering strength before continuing. "And because I fell in love with you, Olivia Farrow. Somewhere between I don't deserve kindness and nearly getting myself killed, I fell completely in love with you." Olivia's heart seemed to stop, then race forward at twice its normal pace. "I love you too," she whispered, the words she had been afraid to even think now flowing freely. "I think I have since you carried me to your ranch and proved to me that kindness still existed in this world." Yates lifted a hand, wincing with the effort to touch her tear-stained cheek. "No more running," he murmured. "No more believing you don't deserve happiness. Promise me." "I promise," Olivia replied, turning her face to press a kiss to his palm. "No more running." Recovery was slow but steady. By the end of 2 weeks, Yates was strong enough to sit up, then to walk short distances. Through it all, Olivia remained by his side, tending to his wound, reading to him, planning their future together. Marshal Drake visited regularly, keeping them informed of developments in the case against Webb and his associates. The ledgers had exposed corruption at the highest levels of territorial government, resulting in multiple arrests and resignations. "Your testimony will be needed at the trial," Drake told them one afternoon as they sat in the small garden behind the doctor's house. "But that won't be for several months yet. By then, Nolan should be fully recovered." "And my status?" Olivia asked, the question that had lingered despite all assurances. "Am I still wanted for Harrington's murder? All charges have been dropped," Drake confirmed. "Webb's confession, combined with Garcia's testimony and the evidence in the ledgers, has completely cleared your name. You're free, Miss Farrow, free to go wherever you choose." Yates's hand found hers, squeezing gently. And I hope she'll choose to come home to Eager, he said, his eyes on Olivia's face. To my ranch, to start a new life together. Olivia's heart swelled with love and gratitude. There's nowhere else I'd rather be, she assured him. A month after the shooting, they finally departed Santa Fe. Yates was still weak, but determined to return to his ranch, to the life and land he loved. They traveled slowly, taking frequent rests and staying at comfortable inns rather than camping as they had on their journey east. Deputy Marshal Garcia accompanied them as far as the territorial border, his own injuries nearly healed. You two changed things for the better, he told them at parting. Not just for yourselves, but for the entire territory. People won't forget that. We just wanted to survive, Olivia replied modestly, to find justice. Garcia smiled knowingly. And something more, I think. He glanced between them, noting the way they instinctively leaned toward each other, the undisguised love in their eyes. Something worth fighting for. They reached Eager on a golden autumn afternoon, the mountains surrounding the town ablaze with changing leaves. Word of their approach had somehow preceded them, and a small crowd had gathered to welcome them home. Patrick and a leaner from the ranch, Sheriff Morgan, townspeople who had followed the story of Webb's corruption and arrest. Looks like you're heroes, Olivia observed as they rode slowly down the main street. Yates shook his head, uncomfortable with the attention. We just did what needed doing. Like you always do, she replied with affection. It's who you are, Yates Nolan. It's one of the many reasons I love you. The ranch looked exactly as they had left it, yet somehow different to Olivia's eyes. Before, it had been a place of refuge, a temporary sanctuary. Now, as they approached the house bathed in late afternoon sunlight, she saw it as home, her home, their home. Alina rushed to greet them, tears in her eyes as she embraced first Olivia, then more gently the still recovering Yates. We've been so worried, she exclaimed. The news that reached us. We feared the worst when we heard you'd been shot. Takes more than a bullet to keep him down, Patrick commented gruffly, though his relief was evident as he clasped Yates's hand. Ranch has missed you, boy. Cattle, too. I've missed it as well, Yates replied, his gaze sweeping over the buildings and pastures with obvious affection. Then his eyes found Olivia, standing slightly apart as if unsure of her place in this homecoming. But I've brought back something more precious than myself. That evening, after a celebratory dinner prepared by Alina, Yates and Olivia sat alone on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in vibrant hues of orange and purple. The air was crisp with the promise of winter, but Olivia felt warmed by Yates's presence beside her, and the knowledge that she was finally, truly home. I've been thinking, Yates said after a comfortable silence, about what you told me during my recovery, your father being a physician, your desire to follow in his footsteps. Olivia looked at him curiously. What about it? There's a doctor in Prescott, Jonathan Miller. He's looking for someone to apprentice with him, someone who might eventually take over his practice when he retires. When we go back for Webb's trial, you could speak with him. Surprise and gratitude flooded Olivia. You'd support that, my becoming a doctor. I'd support anything that makes you happy, Yates replied simply. This ranch has room for a doctor's office if you wanted, or you could practice in town. Either way, I'd be proud to be the husband of Dr. Olivia Nolan. The casual mention of marriage took Olivia's breath away. Husband, she repeated, hardly daring to believe what she was hearing. Yates turned to face her fully, taking both her hands in his. Despite the weeks of recovery, his grip was strong and sure. I had planned something more romantic, he admitted with a rueful smile, but I find I can't wait any longer. Olivia Farrow, would you do me the extraordinary honor of becoming my wife? Joy, pure and overwhelming, burst within Olivia's heart. "Yes," she whispered, then louder. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." Yates pulled her into his arms, his kiss tender yet passionate, a promise of the future they would build together. When they finally parted, he reached into his pocket and produced a small gold ring with a single modest diamond. "It was my mother's," he explained as he slipped it onto her finger. "My father gave it to her when they had nothing but dreams in each other." "It's perfect," Olivia said softly, admiring the way it caught the fading light. "Just like this moment, just like you." Yates brushed a strand of hair from her face, his expression serious despite his evident joy. "I can't promise it will always be easy. Ranch life has its hardships, its lean years and challenges." "I don't want easy," Olivia replied, her hand coming to rest against his cheek. "I want real. I want a life with meaning, with purpose." "I want you," Yates Nalan, with all the complications and challenges that entails. His smile returned, warming her from within. "And to think you once believed you didn't deserve kindness. You proved me wrong," she reminded him, leaning in for another kiss. "Thoroughly and completely wrong." Their wedding took place the following spring, after Yates had fully recovered, and Webb's trial had concluded with convictions for all involved in Harrington's murder and the corruption scheme. The ceremony was held on the ranch, beneath a canopy of blossoming trees, with friends from Eager, Prescott, and Santa Fe in attendance. Marshal Drake served as Yates's best man, while Deputy Marshal Garcia, now promoted to full marshal, gave Olivia away in the absence of her own family. Eleanor cried throughout the ceremony, while Patrick gruffly denied the moisture in his own eyes was anything but dust from the trail. As they exchanged vows, Olivia marveled at the journey that had brought her to this moment, from a frightened, wounded woman stumbling down a dusty street to a bride confident in her future and secure in her place in the world. "I, Olivia, take you, Yates, to be my husband," she said, her voice clear and unwavering. "To share all that is to come, the joy and the sorrow, the plenty and the want. I promise to love you, honor you, and cherish you all the days of my life." Yates's eyes never left hers as he repeated similar vows, his voice deep with emotion. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, the cheer that went up from their assembled friends seemed to reach the very mountains surrounding the ranch. That evening, as they danced beneath lanterns strung across the yard, Yates pulled her close and whispered in her ear, "Happy, Mrs. Nalan." "Happier than I ever imagined possible," Olivia replied truthfully. "And grateful, every day, that you refused to let me believe I didn't deserve this kind of happiness." "Just fulfilling my promise," Yates said with a smile, spinning her gently across the makeshift dance floor, "to prove you wrong." In the years that followed, Olivia did indeed study medicine under Dr. Miller's guidance, eventually establishing her own practice in Eager while continuing to assist her mentor in Prescott. The ranch flourished under Yates's careful management, expanding to include new pastures and a small apple orchard that became known for producing the sweetest fruit in the territory. Their family grew as well. Their first child, a son they named Samuel after Marshal Drake, arrived just over a year after their wedding. A daughter, Maria, followed 2 years later, named for the housekeeper whose courage had helped them secure the ledgers that brought Webb to justice. Their youngest, a spirited boy named James, completed their family 3 years after that. Through all the changes and challenges, life brought harsh winters that threatened the cattle, economic downturns that strained their resources, the everyday trials of raising 3 children while managing both ranch and medical practice. Olivia and Yates faced them together, their love only strengthening with each obstacle overcome. On the 10th anniversary of their first meeting, Yates surprised Olivia with a picnic in the meadow where they had hidden during their flight from Webb's men. Spring wildflowers carpeted the ground around them as they spread their blanket beneath a towering pine. 10 years, Olivia mused, pouring coffee from a thermos as their children played nearby. Sometimes it feels like yesterday that I stumbled into eager, bleeding, and terrified. And sometimes it feels like you've always been here, Yates replied, his hair now touched with silver at the temples but his eyes as bright and loving as ever. As if the ranch, the children, our life together, all of it was waiting for you to arrive. Olivia leaned against his shoulder, contentment warming her from within. Do you ever regret it? Taking in a strange woman, risking everything to help her? Yates's arm tightened around her. Not for a single moment. Best decision I ever made. Even when I proved to be more trouble than you bargained for, he laughed, the sound still capable of making her heart skip after all these years. Especially then. Life was far too predictable before you came along. Their conversation was interrupted by Samuel's excited shout as he discovered a bird's nest in a nearby bush. The children crowded around, their faces alight with wonder at the tiny blue eggs nestled within. Look at them, Olivia said softly, watching their children's delight. So curious, so full of life, sometimes I can hardly believe they are ours. They're extraordinary, Yates agreed, pride evident in his voice, like their mother. As the day waned and they gathered their belongings to return to the ranch, Olivia paused for a final look at the meadow bathed in golden light. So much had changed since that desperate night when they had hidden here. Yet the essential truth remained the same. She had found in Yates not just a protector or a partner, but a man who had shown her what it meant to be truly loved, truly valued. Ready to go home? He asked, standing beside her with Samuel perched on his shoulders while he held Maria's hand. James, independent as always, had already started down the trail toward the waiting horses. Olivia smiled, linking her arm through his free one. I'm already home, she replied simply, wherever you are. Together, they followed their children down the trail, toward the ranch that had become the center of their world, the foundation of their shared life, a life built on courage, justice, and the unwavering belief that everyone, even a wounded governess fleeing for her life, deserved kindness, deserved love, deserved to be proven wrong when doubt clouded her heart. And in the golden light of that spring afternoon, with her family surrounding her and the future stretching bright before them, Olivia Nolan knew with absolute certainty that Yates had indeed proven her wrong, in the most beautiful way possible.